We are now in the year 2025, which means it has been 14 years since GM announced the end of Saab automobile as we know it. And well, with a dead car brand, the average individual or even the average car enthusiast might think that finding parts for these cars would be very difficult, but that is hardly the case. Even dating back to some pre-GM Saabs, you can still find just about everything you need, although sometimes you do have to be creative. Today we're going to talk about exactly that. We're going to go over both OEM part supplier options, aftermarket and performance parts suppliers, as well as some budget-oriented and used part options. Quickly backtracking, while I did say that you can find just about everything you need for any Saab, pre-GM Saabs can be a bit more tough. That, of course, is not a complete blanket statement. Every model Saab has certain parts that are no longer available or NLA. A good example of that would be like a new generation Saab 9.5 taillight. So a quick backstory. Obviously, for car brands that still exist, OEM parts are oftentimes produced by the car brand itself. So when Saab went bankrupt and was shut down by GM in late 2011, the Swedish government actually kind of assumed the role of that and was kind of responsible for Oreo, who is the OEM Saab parts manufacturer. However, about 2 years ago, Hedin purchased Oreo from the Swedish government, and Hedin is now responsible for all of that OEM parts creation and distribution, and they're actually working on bringing back new parts or old parts that are no longer available. If you're a Saab owner, you might already know where to go to buy parts, but you might not know all of these sites I'm about to list, as well as if you're a potential Saab owner, definitely watch this video because you're going to learn a lot. For this video, I'm going to specifically focus on the North American and United States markets. So if you're watching this video from Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa, wherever you might be watching it, and you have part suggestions or part sources that you use in your continent or your region, please comment them down below so that way the people who are watching this video and are not in the United States can have some good places to look. Let's start off with OEM. For just about all parts on these cars, and of course I have my NG93 right behind me, which I'm pointing to, but this also applies to 9.5s, older 9.3s, even classic 900s. It's usually best to just go with the OEM Saab brand. A great example of that with the new generation 9.3 is coil packs. OEM coil packs are a lot more costly than the aftermarket alternatives. However, there has not been a single aftermarket alternative that I have seen that has worked. And so in that case, you got to pay for the OEM or you're just wasting your money. But where can you buy these OEM parts? The one I always recommend people to, and everyone kind of recommends Saab owners to, is eSaab parts. I will have all these websites linked down below in the description for reference if you just want to go straight to them after watching this video. But eSaab parts is just kind of the ultimate go-to in my opinion. They're the best place for OEM parts. They do not carry poor quality parts and also have some cool OEM plus upgrades. So for example, there's a lot of plastic vacuum lines on these cars that tend to fail, and so they've come up with silicone replacement kits. They also have parts diagrams and are a good small business that has excellent customer service. Moving on from that, FCP Euro is actually quickly becoming one of my favorite parts sources. I've used them quite a few times for my classic 900 now when a place like eSaab parts does not have what I need. FCP Euro carries some OEM stuff, but they also carry some non-OEM stuff. So that's a good place to look as well. Along that same line, you also have eEuro Parts, pretty good site located on the East Coast that has a wide variety of Saab parts, both OEM and non-OEM, as well as Autohaus AZ. I've also used them a couple of times for my 900. They're a pretty good site as well, all kind of in the same line of FCP, eEuro Parts, and Autohaus. eSaab parts is really the go-to place if you're strictly looking for OEM though. Let's discuss performance and aftermarket parts. So any sort of high performance parts you might be looking for your car really depends on what kind of part you want. For different car brands and for most car brands, there's generally a few sites that have everything, whether it be tunes, exhausts, air intakes, and with Saabs, that's not really the case. It really depends on what kind of part you want to see what you want. And I actually have a video I'll link in the top corner discussing the best modifications you can do to these cars. And in that video, I talk about part sources. A good example of that is DO88. They are kind of the go-to for anything cooling related, whether that be intercoolers, intercooler hoses, coolant hoses, air intakes, all that sort of stuff. DO88 is going to be the best place to buy performance variants of that. Maptune kind of has just about everything besides that. They have a little bit of everything. They've got suspension, they've got tunes, they've got exhausts, upgraded fuel parts, upgraded cosmetic things or interior pieces like steering wheels, door handles, all that fun stuff. Maptune is a fantastic source for that. Genuine Saab is another one of my favorites. A US local company, great people, great products, very high quality. They have a little bit of everything. A lot of it is CNC or custom made, welded on site, which is super cool. For your pre-GM Saab, specifically Classic 900s, modern Classic Saab is a fantastic resource. If you're not in the 900 community and you don't know about them, you've probably been living under a rock, but they have some fantastic aftermarket OEM sort of parts for the 900. I'll give you two quick examples of that. One of them is their short throw shifter, which is a complete game changer if you have a manual transmission. And second off would be their Trionic 5 conversion kit, which essentially updates the whole engine management and system on the Classic 900. It just makes it run way smoother and is much better for tuning. There's just so many small little parts suppliers out there as well, whether it's some guy in his garage that has come up with an excellent solution or a cool aftermarket upgrade. There's a lot I might not mention here, so if you have anything along those lines, also include that in your comments as well, because the video would just be 30 minutes long if I listed all of them. But that leads me to my last topic, and I want to talk about this one kind of with the asterisk that, again, for most of your parts, you're going to want OEM. So let's discuss some budget or used part options. Now, of course, there are some cases where buying used parts can be great, but a lot of times you just want to buy new. For example, if you're looking for a new SIM for your car, buying a used one is going to be way cheaper than buying a new one, and it'll serve the same purpose. Let's start with Rock Auto. This is kind of one of the more underrated parts suppliers. I mean, Rock Auto has parts for every car on the planet, it seems like. They actually have an incredibly wide selection of Classic 900 parts. One thing to be very wary of is they generally have a lot of budget-friendly options, and in most cases, those budget-friendly options are usually not good. So just be careful, look at the brands that they have before you buy anything from there. Rock Auto also does not offer anything OEM from Oreo or Hedin as far as I have seen. Following that up is Saab Facebook groups. This is a great place to not only learn more about your car, troubleshoot, etc., but also to find parts. There's always people that are either parting cars out or selling parts, selling cars. And there's a video I'll link in the top corner with about a dozen or so Facebook groups. That list has since grown since that video was made, but that can be a good place to look. I will say, if you're looking for things like a front aero lip or a DO88 intercooler, those are things that you are just not going to find on those websites and something that you would have to buy new. But again, that can work for a situation. I'll use the SIM example again. If you're looking for a used SIM with a matching key, that can be a great place to find something like that. And one last thing about Facebook groups, there are a lot of scammers on these Facebook groups. The admins do a terrific job of weeding them out, but they are still there and pop up on the daily basis. So before you buy anything on Facebook, make sure to, I'd recommend watching this video in the top corner, but also make sure you've kind of vetted this individual and make sure they're legit before sending them any money. Jumping off of that, eBay is another excellent used parts resource place. I've even bought things or new and used and budget friendly, really. Like, for example, I bought motor mounts for my Classic 900 off eBay because that was just the best place to get them. It can be a good place for just kind of a little bit of everything. They kind of have, you know, obviously OEM, cheap alternatives. It just kind of depends. eBay's a pretty well-rounded site as well for that kind of stuff. And lastly, I'm going to talk about Saabnet. Saabnet is mostly for selling cars, although they do sometimes have parts listings on there as well. So Saabnet, another fantastic resource and just an essential part of our Saab community. I will also quickly shout out my buddy Lucas, who runs Saving Saabs. I'll put his website down below. He has a small Saab parts junkyard up in northern Arizona that he has some parts available, so you could also shoot him a message depending on what you're looking for, or an email. He might be able to help you out. So again, if you have any additional websites, parts sources, companies you want to add to this list that you've bought from and you trust, put them down below in the comments. I hope this was informative to all of you. Even if you are very familiar with Saab parts, hopefully there's a website or two in here that you hadn't heard of before that you might want to check out. I did make a similar video to this over 5 years ago and realized recently after looking at the websites in that video that some of them don't exist anymore. So hopefully in another 5 years, all these companies I listed will still be around. I think they will be. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone has a fantastic 2025. Thank you all so much for watching and your continued support. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Check out my merchandise as well if you'd like to help support the channel some more. I'll see y'all in the next one.